What is Pentecostalism, and where does this so-called charismatic form of Christianity come from? Etymologically, the word charismatic, like Pentecostal, comes from the Greek New Testament, and in this case the word charis, meaning gift or grace, and in this context signifying the Christian discourse about how God's special gifts are available to all believers through the Holy Spirit. So the charismatic gifts are therefore strongly connected to the Holy Spirit and the presence of God. Charismatic Christianity has a particular focus on a living connection to the Holy Spirit through the so-called gifts, such as healing, prophecy, exorcism, experiencing a baptism in the Spirit, and speaking in tongues. These gifts often conjoin with a literal approach to the Bible, sometimes called evangelical. Charismatic gifts are also found in Catholic and Orthodox branches of Christianity, and we here need to speak about at least two aspects of Pentecostalism. According to Douglas Jacobson, 30% of Central and South Asian Christians are Pentecostals. 30% are Protestants, 13 Orthodox, and 27 are Catholic. These numbers would most probably be different for India, but in relation to Pentecostals, we here see that it is a significant group. And if we combine the Charismatics with Pentecostals as a separate category, the three remaining groups of Protestants and Catholics and Orthodox can still express certain Pentecostal practices, defining of a more traditional Pentecostal and Charismatic churches and denominations. On the one hand, Pentecostalism is a religious revival movement beginning around the turn of the 20th century that later comes to take on institutional forms as independent churches and denominations, affiliating most strongly with Protestant theology and praxis. On the other hand, Pentecostalism also names the charismatic movement that have run through and made lasting impressions upon the more historical churches of the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican churches, the Orthodox churches, without finding the need to create a strong independent institution. Pentecostalism globally and in India names both of these movements. If around 5% of the population of India is Christian, scholar Chad Bauman has argued that one estimation is that Pentecostal Christians would correspond to at least 5 million and could perhaps even be around 8 to 10 million, in the sense of independent organized Christianity in separate churches. If we include Catholic charismatics, we might speak about up to 20 to 30 million Pentecostals. What is Pentecostalism? Let us now take a closer look at Pentecostalism in India and where it comes from. Interestingly, the phenomenon of Pentecostalism appear around the world around at the same time on multiple sites, especially around the year of 1904 to 1906, without any clear signs of a controlling center. The rhizome of Pentecostalism is here due to an impressive missionary network existing worldwide and aiding in the spread of this new form of Christianity. Again, the roots of Pentecostalism spreads rather sideways than vertically. It moves like a rhizome and is more or less impossible to locate an originary location for Pentecostalism as a whole. With relation to India, however, it is equally impossible to bypass the events in Pune and the Mukti Mission of 1905. We should here then simply mention a few other charismatic revivals in India, such as one instance in 1860 among Indian Christians influenced by the Plymouth Brethren, continued through to 1873 in Indian Anglican circles. And then we have the spread of a revival in Khasi Hills in 1905 among Presbyterian missions inspired by the Welsh revival. In hindsight, however, many would like to link the movement closely to the three revivals in 1904 and 1905 Wales, 1905 in India, and 1906 in America. The American expression often takes precedence, and the events of April 1906 in Los Angeles and Azusa Street 312 would soon, and to many still, be the symbolic genesis of the global Pentecostal movement. This has its clear disadvantages, however, since the same kind of religious phenomena appear also in Wales and in India. Importantly, and prior to the Azusa Street revival, a similar event took place in Pune, Maharashtra, beginning in January 1905, when a daily prayer service leads to a spiritual awakening for many hundreds of people over the course of 1.5 years. The vessel of God's revival in this case, as the Pentecostals like to say, was Pandita Ramabai Saraswati, a certain Brahminic woman, made widow at the age of 24, Sanskrit scholar and feminist. Ramabai is an important scholar, reformer and pioneering feminist thinker in her own right, and led an extraordinary life, not to mention her contribution as a Sanskrit scholar with her book The High Caste Hindu Women. But here we will look at her legacy within the Pentecostal movement. In her 20s, Ramabai associated herself clearly with Christianity and founded the Mukti Mission in 1889. It was dedicated to the rescue and protection of child widows like herself and orphans. Yet something else happened in the Mukti Mission as well. This is perhaps the primary instance of a charismatic Pentecostal outburst in India, when girls at the Mukti Mission experienced the presence of the Holy Spirit in a variety of Pentecostal ways. For instance, being slain in the Spirit, which meant experiencing a paralyzing presence of God, speaking in tongues, prophesying, and there were even reports of some who felt their skin being inflamed by the presence of God. In her book, The Great Mukti Revival, from 1906, Ramabai herself writes, "The English churches of India are some of them beginning to seek after the blessing which the Indian churches are receiving. Without doubt, the little groups of earnest praying ones will soon be rewarded with an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. For God is no respect of person. In any part of the world where earnest, persistent prayer is offered in faith, revival will surely come. The best preparation for a revival is not a committee, but a praying band. Let Christians in all parts of the world seek earnestly this Pentecostal outpouring for themselves and for fellow believers, and pray mightily for an outpouring of the Spirit upon unconverted and the heathen. The promise is, I will pour my Spirit, upon all flesh." Arguably, the Mukti revival was an entirely Indian event through and through, and the English were primarily spectators. Only after the fire of the Spirit had started to burn did the foreigners come, for example from Azusa Street, to take part and to study the Mukti Mission.